Creating bleeds for print production. Upon completion of this tutorial, the learner should be able to describe the purpose of bleeds for print production, understand where bleed settings are located in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign, and know how to create bleed allowances in Adobe Photoshop. Users should also be able to create a PDF with bleeds and crop marks for viewing in Adobe Acrobat. At first glance, bleeds in printing seem counterintuitive. Why create an area to be printed that will be trimmed and discarded? The short answer is because printing technology does not allow printing to the edge of substrates, such as paper. The mechanics of digital and traditional offset presses require that margin between the edge of the paper and the print area. If the print area doesn't extend past the edge of the finished document, which is called the trim edge, when the printed piece is trimmed in the finishing process, there's a possibility that a thin line along the edge could be present. By printing larger than the trimmed area, this possibility may be eliminated. Industry standard for bleed allowance is 1/8 to 1/4 inch or 0.125 to 0.25 inches. Here are two examples of a note card, one requiring a bleed and the other not requiring a bleed. In the example on the left, we see that the trim edge bleeds off the left, bottom, and right sides of the card. The setup for this card would require a minimum of 1/8 inch or 0.125 inch bleed allowance. The card on the right would not require a bleed allowance since the graphic is contained well within the image area away from the edges. Let's start with Photoshop since that's the more cumbersome application when accounting for bleeds. While Adobe Photoshop is not used for print layouts, although technically it can be used but is strongly discouraged since the intended use is for manipulation of photographic images, setting up the file size to accommodate bleeds is important. This may be done by calculating the final dimensions needed and sizing the image appropriately. For example, if a design requires a 4 by 6 inch image that bleeds on all four sides with a bleed allowance of 1/8 of an inch, that would require an image size of 4.25 by 6.25 inches. Let's quickly do the math. 4 inches plus 0.125 inches on the top and 0.125 inches on the bottom equals 4.25 inches. And 6 inches plus 0.125 inches on the left plus 0.125 inches on the right equals 6.25 inches. One helpful technique for visualizing what portions of your image will be impacted by bleeds is to use guides. Navigate to View, New Guide Layout, select Margins, and enter the bleed amount in the input fields. The guidelines will indicate where the image will be trimmed. When working in InDesign, make sure you have included bleeds in your document setup. You can do this when you're creating the file by entering the desired measurements in the input fields. You can also add the bleed allowance later by navigating to Document Setup, then Bleeds. To better visualize how your design will look when printed, navigate to View, then Preview. You may also select View, Bleed to see how the artwork is positioned in respect to the bleed allowance. Make sure any artwork you wish to bleed off the page extends all the way to the bleed guide. In Adobe Illustrator, the bleed setup is similar. You may set up your bleeds when creating a new document, or by navigating to File, Document Setup, then changing the bleeds in the input panels. In Illustrator, guides will appear to show the bleed edge. Make sure artwork is extended to these areas if you want to incorporate a bleed into your design. Let's place the Photoshop file we worked on just a moment ago. Since the image was sized correctly, it fits the bleed area perfectly. To preview how this document will appear once printed, navigate to View, Trim View. Just a side note, when setting up print files, if you have a design that requires more than one page, It's best to create the layout in InDesign instead of Illustrator. Exporting a document as a PDF with bleeds is quite simple. In InDesign, navigate to File, Adobe PDF Presets, then select from the available options. We'll select smallest file size for this demonstration. Make sure that Crop Marks is selected in the dialog window and specify the bleed allowance by either selecting Use Document Bleed Settings or enter the bleed amount in the input fields. In Adobe Illustrator, navigate to File, Save As, then select PDF from the drop-down menu. Double-check that you've selected the option to export with trim marks and bleeds. Be sure to open the PDFs in Adobe Acrobat to double-check them before sending them to a printer or other recipients. To recap, bleed allowances are necessary when a design extends or bleeds off the edges of a printed design, so they must be incorporated into the print production files, a task easily done in Adobe applications. Double-checking the files by using Adobe Acrobat helps ensure the bleeds are set up correctly. Thanks for watching.